Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and my law firm assists dental associates with employment contract issues. Today I'm going to talk about how to negotiate a dental associate contract. So some tips and tricks on how to get a better contract. So first, there is a difference between negotiating a contract as somebody just coming out of training versus someone who's been established in a community for a while. You simply have more leverage if you are in a community and either your practice is being bought out by a corporate practice or another group wants you to join them and you have an established patient base. Let's first talk about those coming out of training. So what do you need to do in order to put yourself in the best position to negotiate a contract? Well, you need to know what's important. So for most dentists, the most important thing are obviously compensation. Is it a base salary? Is it a daily rate? Is it some kind of net collections? How do you terminate the contract? Are you able to get out of it with a certain amount of notice? What are the benefits? Do they pay for your license, DEA registration, credentialing, any kind of continuing education? And then are there signing bonuses, relocation assistance? Do you have to pay them back if you leave within a certain amount of time? And then one of probably the two highest priorities are who pays for malpractice insurance, who has to pay for tail insurance after the contract terminates, if it's a claims-made policy. And then lastly, the non-compete. For some people, this is the absolute most important thing in the contract. If they're tied to a community, kids in school, family there, absolutely can't leave, then you need a reasonable non-compete that's not going to make you have to move completely out of the area. All right, so those are the things that are most important to most dental associates. Now, you're coming out of training, you have a job offer, they're giving you a certain amount. How do you know what's reasonable and what's not? Well, the best place to find out that information is to talk to your classmates. What are the offers they're getting? How much are they getting? How are they structured? Where are the job offers coming from? That's the best and most, I would say, accurate means of finding out kind of what's the going rate at that time. The compensation is going to vary pretty wildly. As I said before, is it a base salary? Is it a daily rate? There's some kind of net collections involved. Is it a hybrid? Could it be half base, half net collections? Many times, compensation for a job may look great, but then the benefits are bad, or they're not paying for your tail insurance, or the non-compete is terrible. So you can't just take compensation as the number one factor in determining what is a good opportunity, but it certainly is important. Knowing whether a non-compete is fair or not, that is something you'll probably have to talk to a professional about. For the most part, anywhere between 1 to 2 years and then maybe 5 to 15 miles from your primary practice location would be considered reasonable. If you're in a non-compete that's more than 2 years, or it knocks out like multiple counties, or maybe they've attached the non-compete radius to, let's say it's a corporate practice in a big city and they have 10 locations and they're saying, well, you can't work within 10 miles of every location we own. That's not a reasonable non-compete. So the actual negotiation will depend on two things. One, do they give you an offer letter or do they just give you the employment agreement? If they give you an offer letter, they're going to expect that those terms are going to be negotiated in advance and then incorporated into the employment agreement, and then they're going to give you the employment agreement. I find sometimes it's difficult to come to terms on the main parts of an offer letter without seeing the full employment agreement. I mean, if I had, like in the perfect scenario, there would be no offer letter, they would just give you the employment agreement, then you'd have kind of the full understanding of what the job entails and what the expectations are for both parties. You could agree to a salary, you could agree to the length of the term, that there is a non-compete, that the things they'll pay for, but when you see the specific language in the contract, it could, greatly change the way you look at the value of the contract. Just because you've signed an offer letter doesn't mean that you can't renegotiate those terms if you provide proper context to the employer. All right, I was okay with making $110,000 a year in base salary, not knowing that the non-compete effectively knocks me out of the entire state. If you want me to sign this contract with that non-compete, then I will, I need 130,000 or something like that. So there's many ways of going back and forth. Some employers simply will just say, this is take it or leave it. I would be weary of signing a contract with an organization that's not, kind of unwilling to make any changes at all in the contract. It usually means they're difficult to work with down the road, or very rigid in the kind of, professional environment. So if you find that someone just says, take it or leave it, I would leave it and move on and try and find a better opportunity. I'm just telling you, if they take the mindset that they're not going to change anything in the contract, like nothing at all, no changes, signing bonus, relocation assistance, benefits, anything like that, it is a bad sign moving forward. And then one more thing to think about that is absolutely should be top of mind when you're signing a contract or negotiating the terms of an agreement. Every employment contract should have what's called without cause termination. So either party should have the ability to terminate the agreement at any time with a certain amount of notice to the other party, usually somewhere between 30 to 90 days. If your contract does not have without cause termination, meaning you have to fulfill the entire initial term of the agreement, somewhere between 1 to 3 years normally, it is an enormous red flag, and you absolutely should not sign that contract for this reason. If they have excluded without cause termination, which is essentially standard across all healthcare professions, it usually means they've had a ton of turnover, or they've had some very dissatisfied dentists that have wanted to leave. So they remove that ability and make sure that they have to stay there for a 3-year period or a 2-year period or whatever. If it's not in the contract, that's why it's normally not in there, is that they've had a ton of turnover. And the turnover is normally due to bad management. It's just either it's a toxic work environment, the compensation is not worth the amount of time or effort you've have to put into it. So absolutely make certain there's always without cause termination in the employment agreement. Don't feel bad about asking for things. If you're negotiating the terms of employment, most smart employers expect there's going to be some back and forth. Ask for a little more salary, a little more bonus, a little less non-compete radius. Like incremental things that you can get changed in an agreement can make, kind of a big change in the value of an opportunity. So don't feel bad. Now, obviously, if they're offering 100 and you ask for 300 or some crazy amount, they're going to just think that you have no idea what's going on. They'll probably move on. So when you ask for something, it needs to be reasonable. How do you find out what's reasonable or not? Once again, talk to your classmates, talk to any mentors, talk to attorneys who understand what they're doing and deal with these contracts every day. That's where you need to get in. But if you go in and ask for these ridiculous changes to an agreement, most places will either just pull the offer or just say, no, we're not doing any of that. So that's how you negotiate a dental associate contract. If you have any questions about your employment agreement or offer letter, you can always call my law firm at the phone number listed below in the description, or you can reach us through our website, chellelaw.com, CHELLE law.com. And I appreciate you watching the video. Thanks.